Let's check out this video from Holy Gabbana that actually explains how he dealt with the emptiness and void feelings that he was going through in those times when he just got saved, and how God helped him overcome those feelings. And I mean, if God could help Holy Gabbana that was so influenced by the world, why wouldn't he want to help you? So let's have a look and see what he has to say.
Now that I am a man of faith and actually walking out the gospel, I'm not dependent on drugs anymore. I've been sober probably like 4 years now. I don't even have a desire to get back on drugs.
You know what I like? Let's stop there. The thing is, he says that now that he's walking out his faith, the thing is, he's journeying with his faith. He's actually intentionally being in relationship with Jesus, and it's not just something that he said or something whereby he just prayed a prayer. You can hear the earnesty in his voice. You can hear that he actually does sound sincere, and we're praying that it definitely is. I'm praying that it definitely is. And so the point I'm trying to make is the fact that he's intentionally having this relationship with God, being 4 years sober. Man, that is an achievement. That is amazing. That is great. And all glory to God for helping him through that. I think that so many of us get caught up in just the overwhelming feeling of what am I going to do next? If I give something up, what's going to happen next? And yet we find our hope and we find our source in God. And by us finding our source in God, God's the one that gives us peace, and God's the one that gives us that state of mind by which we can have the attitude to overcome the certain feelings of void and emotion. And so for us to rely on God, that is of uttermost importance.
Anything. The emptiness that I was feeling, the void that was within me, could only be filled by Jesus. We live in a fallen world. The state that we are in, with the sinful state, it's not how we're originally designed. It's not how God created us. Only the maker, the creator, could bring us back to our original state. You get a Benz and you could take the Benz somewhere else.
Yeah.
But only the maker of the Benz is actually gonna get it right. Get the,
So good.
Yeah. So with me, I could go outside of God and be temporarily fulfilled or happy or whatever, but I'm not gonna be 100% unless I go to the one who created me.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah. Okay. He mentions quite amazing things over there. I think that his testimony is powerful and it is strong, and you guys can go check him out on YouTube, and you can check out more podcasts of him. I like this snippet or this clip particularly for the fact that he mentions a lot of things. He mentions intentionally walking with God. That's what we just covered a bit ago. But he also mentions that this wasn't God's original and his plan in the beginning. This wasn't God's intent for us to live in brokenness. It wasn't God's intent for us to live in hurt and in pain and to have void feelings and emptiness. And because we have those feelings, we have to fill it with something else. And yet that wasn't God's original plan. And so for us to get back into that original plan, he makes this analogy of you can buy a Benz, but it's only the owner of the Benz or the maker of the Benz that can actually fix that Benz, that knows more about that Benz. How does that relate to us? When we go through so many things that no one can really explain. Who's ever had this kind of feeling before, that you're going through such a tough time, you're speaking to all your friends, you've spoken to so many people, but it's like no one just understands where you're coming from, what you are going through, the things that you are having to deal with on a day-to-day, the thoughts that you perhaps have to endure. And I mean, I feel so much for people that keep pushing forward in times like that keep having their heads above water even though they feel like they are sinking. And so Jesus comes and still offers that hope. God still comes and reminds us that that's not the original intent by which he wants us to live by. He doesn't want us to live by hurt. He doesn't want us to live defeated and down on the ground. He doesn't want us to live that way, because that wasn't his intent in the first place. You see, God's intent always had for us to live in a way that is in communion with him, to have peace and to have joy, to have relationship with him. And that is the amazing thing about God, is that God never intended for there to be hurt, and he never intended for us to be in a place where we can just disregard ourselves, even in moments where we go through feeling those emotions. And so he mentions the only way we can get fixed, the only way that you can have relationship is coming to the owner, coming to God, saying, God, I've been dealing with these things. I've been struggling with these things. And for him to mention he's been clean for 4 years, he doesn't have any kind of desire, he doesn't have any kind of feeling. And man, you know what it feels like when you've gotten so used to things that you've gotten so used to it that it's become part of your routine. It's become part of your day. Every day you do it. Every single day you just like indulging in what you used to do. And at the end of it, it's like now that you have to leave that, it's always as if you feel this feeling of how am I actually going to do it? How I was so used to this on each and every day. How do I get used to this? Last night, we had a conversation with Romano Dennis, and he spoke about something, and he said that he used to be a cigarette smoker, and it was every day that he used to smoke. But his relationship with God was so much more important. His intent to be in relationship with God was so much more important that he was willing to give that up. It wasn't about what's going to happen tomorrow. It wasn't about how am I going to go through tomorrow. It was about me saying, Father, I give that all over. It was about Romano saying, I give it all over. It was about Holy Gabbana saying, I give this all over. And God, I don't know how we're going to go through this, but I'm going to put my faith and my hope in you. And so with us understanding that most of the times we think that, maybe I'll just do some behavior modification. Maybe I'll just stop certain things and God will still be pleased with me. Now, that's a good reflection for you to stop certain things that are bad habits. First of all, that's amazing for your health. So if you were a smoker or drinker or whatever and you were caught up in stuff like that, first of all, when you stop, that's amazing for your health. Secondly, it's amazing for your image. You don't come across as someone that is putting out a character of Christ, perhaps, that is not from Christ, or it's just a lot cleaner, if I can put it that way. No, I'm not judging anyone that does smoke or does drink. I'm not saying that you guys are not cleaner. It's just that your image just looks a little bit more cleaner because alcohol and smoking has been associated with like unhealthy lifestyles or various other elements that go with it. So when you stop those two, it looks as if you are this cleaner person. It also makes it seem as if you are a good reflection of your belief, right? And so it doesn't necessarily mean that you're in good relationship with God. That's what I've just mentioned now is just behavior modification. That is the modification of how you used to live, bad habits that need to be cut. Now, in us living a life pleasing to God, there are habits that are going to die away. There are things that's going to die away because it's not a good reflection of God. But the difference is you're not doing it so that you can tell yourself that you are a good person. You are doing it because you want to draw closer to God. And we kind of mix those two up because we get a lot of believers that say, I've stopped drinking, I've stopped smoking, I've stopped being sexually immoral or all of those things. But then on the other side, they still gossiping, they still slandering others, they still doing, it's like the bulk in their eye, it's like the splint in their eye just became so much more bigger, and it's actually a bulk, it's not even a splint anymore, but they can't see past that. So it is important for us that when we say, Father, I'm giving all this over to you, that it's not from the perspective of me becoming a better person. This is from the perspective of me wanting a relationship with you, Jesus. The moment I say I need to become a better person is the moment self-righteousness will creep in, because you'll measure everything everyone else does according to your standard of how you've done it and how you've lived. But when we give that over to God, I get to understand love. So when I give everything over to God and God helps me to shed away with those things, what happens is when I look at the next person, I don't look at them from a point of view of self-righteousness. I look at them from the point of love. And I tell them, you know who helped me? It's God that helped me. You know who got me through those tough times? It's God that helped me through those tough times, those broken times, those times of feeling void and feeling emptiness. The only person that could fulfill me, that could be that satisfaction in my life, is me going into a relationship with Jesus Christ. And so you see, this afternoon, this morning, wherever you're finding yourself, let us not find ourselves in places of self-righteousness, but let's find ourselves in places where we can truly exercise the love of Christ, truly be intentional about relationship in Jesus Christ, truly live a life that is pleasing to God. And when we are ready to do all of that, I know that God is faithful and true to walk with us. When we give all of those things over, anything that you are struggling with in anything, any area of your life, when you give it over to God, you just need to be obedient to His voice and continue walking the path that He set out for you. And so therefore, in closing, let me share this with you. Romans chapter 15, verse 13. May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace in believing, that ye may abound in hope through the power of the Holy Ghost. I love this verse because, first of all, it makes God the source of my hope. May the God of hope, which means hope belongs to God. So God is the one that distributes hope. He's the source of hope. If something belongs to someone, they have the power to distribute that thing as well. So God is the God of hope. He's the source thereof. So may this God, which is the source of hope, fill you with joy and peace, in believing, that ye may abound in hope. You see, the Greek for the word abound there is to go beyond a fixed point. So if this is the fixed point, to abound in hope would mean to go beyond this fixed point. That's what God does in our lives. That's what God is able to do in our lives. That even if we feel this is where we are kept, this is where God will only use us. This is where my addiction will take me. This is where my darkness and my void of feeling empty will take me. This is it for me. God will come and He will say, no, we'll break beyond that, because I'm greater than the addiction. I'm greater than the void you're feeling. I'm greater than the depressional feelings that you are going through and processing. I'm greater than the anxiety. God says, I am greater than all of those things that you might be dealing with. And you see, like I've mentioned, when we come with the intention of drawing closer to God, God is faithful and true to draw closer to us. Be blessed today, and I hope that you enjoy it.